Rob Fleming here. I'm going to pick up a story just now, a quick piece about the fact that in Britain, and it's not clear from this piece whether it's the whole of Britain or just England and Wales, is going to see some radical changes in the funding of university education. Before we go there, please remember, please subscribe. We really need your funding assistance, so please go on to Patreon, please go on to any of the sites that we'll give you, the links we'll give you, to contribute a little bit for this article. And I hope you think my articles are worth, I don't mind how little you give, but just a little something would be very nice. And please share and tell your friends. Stick it around the social media. Anyway, let us continue. Government sources have today announced that there may be a cut in student fees from £9,250 a year, which I guess is about $12,000, $13,000, to $7,500, which sounds on the face of it like good news. And it has also been made clear, and this is one of these things where you run a positive story to cover one that isn't maybe quite so positive. It's called news management. That the range of courses will be restricted. That many universities now are beginning to cut particular areas of courses, and these are especially in what used to be called the general arts, the liberal arts degree courses. Now, that might sound like a bad thing, but I have to say that, I'm an academic. I've been out of academia for a long time. However, even when the last time I was in university, the situation had become completely dire. It was terrible. These liberal art courses, whether it was creative arts, performance arts, or the more reflective arts, the critical arts, philosophy and things like that, had become absolute cesspits of left-wing activism. They were appalling. And they were teaching things that really basically weren't true. And I was horrified. It's one of the reasons I did not proceed. I thought, no, I can't work in an environment like this. Excuse the neighbours on their motorbike. So in some ways, I'm really quite made up, because I've been saying for probably a number of years now, that certain university courses should be defunded, that we should really stop paying for them, because they have been used by the left, and it's the woke left. They're not really, your cuddly neighbourhood nice person who wants to be comfy and cuddly. This is the most poisonous, rabid, nasty group of people in current politics. I mean, they are actually worse than the extreme right. They're awful. They will shut down anything at all that they don't agree with. And unfortunately, universities, and in particular certain courses within universities, have become, as I say, cesspits for this sort of behaviour. So, when I went to university first, which is, it was just after the last Ice Age, it was a very long time ago, the liberal arts were seen as useful things to study because they broadened the mind. And that was always the phrase that you heard, was that this was 3 or 4 years, whether you were doing an ordinary or an honours degree, of having your mind broadened and opened to new ideas. And in fact, that's no longer the case. What has happened is that the liberal arts have become indoctrination systems in which extremely left-wing teachers, the Americans call them professors, they're not professors, they're just lecturers, we'll just call them teachers, extremely left-wing teachers coerce, and that's the only word for it, students to follow their left-wing point of view. And one thing you must understand is that teachers have enormous power. They always reward people who agree with them. They just do. And nowhere more than in the liberal arts and humanities. If you're a brilliant scientist and you're better than your teachers, well, there ain't a lot they can do about it, because you're brilliant and they're going to have to recognise it. But within humanities, it's all much more vague. Humanities and liberal arts, it's so much more vague. It's very much more touchy-feely, which I react to badly anyway. And it's all very much about, the impression of the teachers. And if the teachers don't like what you do, you're not going anywhere. Their purpose in life is to populate academia with people who think like they do. And that's how it has come about over the last, really, I think it was really just starting when I first went to university, which was it began in 1979, and it has now reached, absolute critical mass. It was just starting back then, and there was still a lot of resistance. But what's happened is that generation after generation of academics have chosen the most woke students to follow in their footsteps, thus rendering the whole thing completely poisonous. That's how academia works, by the way. If you don't basically bum-suck your teachers, then you don't go anywhere. But if you do, you might get a fellowship, You might get an associateship. You might get something like that. You might get some part-time teaching, just enough to get you on the ladder. And if you behave yourself and you keep spouting the appropriate ideas, well, we might just promote you a bit further. I mean, the whole thing is utterly corrupt. It's appallingly corrupt. And it really does need to be grubbed out. Now, I'm not convinced that this move of reducing the number of courses and thereby cutting fees is going to actually work, because I think the rot has gone a very, very long way. I think that the government, the funding bodies in Britain, just to let any Americans, my American friends know, almost all university funding in the UK actually comes from the government, either through direct block grants or through funding students, right, giving them student loans, which are often never paid back. But never mind, it's the government who pays for it. It's not really private money. They definitely do, they seek private money, but the bulk of the cash, it comes from the government. The government is left in a position of, what is it going to do? We have seen a situation now, and the British government actually seems to be waking up to this, that woke culture is on the point of destroying British culture completely. And it has to be stopped. It really does have to be stopped. And in a way, part of me says, well, any way you can stop it is good. But I do have to say that I'm saddened. I'm very sad about what's happened. That these areas of study which were formerly really very beneficial are going to be lost, because they have been infested by people with a strongly Marxist point of view, whose sole aim is to destroy the culture they live in. But anyway, that's not wrong. I'll speak to you soon about something else. Bye-bye.